This report highlights the union's activities, challenges and other events that occurred over the period between January 2018 and December 2021. The union has seen various changes during the period under review as a strategy to respond to events and transpired in the country and the world at large. 2018 and 2019 were more productive years for the union, which saw numerous planned activities being conducted and implemented, as was resolved by the 2017 Quadrennial Conference and 2018 Annual Conference. District branch and district committees were consulted and orientation training workshops commenced for these committees. Negotiation training workshops were also conducted to impart skills in our new members on the executive committees.
The prospects of the institution were buoyant and many cooperation strategies were developed with partner unions in countries around the Southern African region. The advent of the COVID-19 compelled institutions to transform their working models in an attempt to effectively respond to the challenges brought about by the virus. Consequently, the business community also restructured their way of operating, giving rise to rotational working systems, downsizing, and other cost-saving measures. In this regard, the union was closely following events in the country and the financial sector in particular, responding to these issues in order to mitigate the impact of these events on the workers. The effect of these events brought about dissatisfaction amongst workers, a reduction in the institution's finances, thereby making it difficult to conduct planned activities, and the union's decision to introduce a recovery and sustainability initiative ranging from cost-saving measures to empowerment strategies.
I also wish to report to this Quadrennial Conference, that Mr. Akim Mwemba, our former union president, resigned from his employment as president of the union. The union remains grateful to Mr. Mwemba for his contribution to the growth of the union ZUFIAW. The vice president then, Mr. Kasapu, took over the position of union president in an acting capacity up to this time. Mr. President, allow me to highlight the segment of this General Secretary's report to this 14th Quadrennial Conference being held today at Mika Convention Center here in Lusaka. Obituaries. Mr. President, it is with a heavy heart that I report to this august house that the union lost members during the period under review. May I list a few of those members that have gone to be with the Lord. Christopher Mulomba, ABSA Ndola Chairperson. Morgan Weupe, former LANSIF Chairperson and National Executive Council Trustee. Elita Zulu, ABSA Member. Bank of Zambia Executive Committee Member. Aled Mulele, PSPF, Vice Chairperson Women's Committee. Nelly Chelo, LASIF Member. Sarah Tembo, NATSEV Member. Alice Mwanza, NATSEV Member, Women's Committee Member. Michael Melupi, FNB Member. And many more too numerous to mention. May I take this opportunity, Mr. President, to ask every one of us to be upstanding and observe a moment of silence for our departed gallant sons and daughters, men and women of ZUFIAW.
On the 12th of August 2021, the country went to the polls where a new president, members of parliament, and councillors were elected into office. These elections were regarded as one of the most critical elections in our country's history, given that the country had drawn the attention of the international community, who believed that the country's democracy had come under threat, given the rise in the activities of cadres, violence, and the nation's history when it comes to general elections. The United Party for National Development UPND New Dawn administration was declared winner, and the former head of state gracefully conceded defeat and handed over the instruments of power to the 7th Republican President, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. The New Dawn administration under the President Hakainde Hichilema reiterated its commitment towards economic recovery, bringing sanity in the operations of government, zero tolerance to corruption, and upholding the rule of law, which is of a great importance to us as a labor movement, given that it promoted our freedom of association and freedom of speech. On the economic front, the government is in the process of negotiating for a bailout package with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. This package, though necessary for economic recovery, does come with its own challenges. History has taught us that countries that enter into such arrangements with the IMF have to implement cost-effective strategies such as a wage freeze, an unemployment freeze, and a reduction in overall government spending. As a labor movement, we are currently studying the conditions of this package in order to ensure that we prepare and position ourselves in such a manner that our members are not adversely impacted by the measures. It is our hope that the government shall negotiate for a package which takes into account the plight of the Zambian workers. State of the economy. The country had registered a 3% GDP positive growth in 2018, and many infrastructure development projects were underway. In December of 2019, the first traces of COVID-19 filtered onto the continent, and governments began positioning themselves to respond to the virus, and by the year 2020, the country had started recording cases and deaths resulting from COVID-19. The country implemented responsive measures which included the closing of borders and restrictions on gatherings and certain business activities. This affected local business, and as the labor movement, we were also not spared. The loss in membership due to redundancies, downsizing, and restructuring greatly affected the standing of the institution. ZUFIAW remained resolute on building on the objective of negotiating for better conditions of service for its members regardless of the performance of the economy.
State of the Union. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, during the period under review, the Union faced various challenges and successes, which I wish to report to this August House, and also report on our officiated institution as follows. AB Bank. I'm pleased, Mr. President, to announce that there is a new affiliated institution. ZUFIAW and management at AB Bank signed a memorandum of recognition agreement, and negotiation for the first ever collective agreement are underway. May I commend the branch executive for their dedication and commitment to duty and to the Union, given that they have remained strong and active despite their colleagues shying away from participating in Union matters for fear of intimidation. ABSA. The transition from Barclays Bank, Zambia to ABSA Bank Limited has brought its challenges, which has also affected our members in the institution. Barclays Bank UK reduced its shareholding in the institution and exited the African market, and ABSA Group took hold of the majority shareholding status of the bank. The Union engaged management to resolve the matter of transfer of contracts for our members, but management disputed this position, and the matter was taken to court and is currently before the court of law. The redundance package of 4 months' pay for each year served still remain as enshrined in our agreement. The atmosphere, Mr. President, in the bank is not conducive, which saw the unfair and barbaric dismissal of our former branch chairperson, Mrs. Muzia Muntungwa, and the matter has been taken to court. Meanwhile, kudos go to the local branch executive under the able leadership of our chairperson, Mr. Philip Muni, who is the chairperson for the Lusaka branch, and his team, who stood their ground and refused to be intimidated. Access Bank. Access Bank has been a very bad example in terms of membership representation in the history of the financial sector in Zambia. One of our former affiliated institution, Kavmont Bank, was acquired wholly by Access Bank, and most of our workers from Kavmont Bank were taken up by Access Bank. However, this institution is led with policies that do not consider the plight of workers in the country. Management in the institution insists on operating within the barest minimum of the law in terms of conditions of service, and remain stubborn and refuse to make any upward adjustment in terms of conditions of service or adjustment in the collective agreement. There is a recognition agreement in place, but there is rampant intimidation in the institution, and members are afraid to speak out, thereby leaving them vulnerable and to suffer in silence. We call upon our colleagues at Access Bank to stand up and demand for their right. The intimidation that they are experiencing currently is not permanent, but they need also to make a resolve to stand up and speak for their right. However, we are hopeful that after the appointment of a new managing director, who is an indigenous Zambian with many years of experience in the financial sector, the union can reclaim its position and protect the right of its members. Atlas Mara. There had been a worrying trend in the increasing number of disciplinary cases in the institution due to uncoordinated management processes. We are saddened as a union that our members are being affected by this unfortunate trend, and the union and the branch executive is working with management to resolve these matters as quickly as possible. Going forward, we hope that management and the union should find a common ground and work within the spirit of partnership and equal stakeholdership. We want also to report that it's on record and it is in public domain that there is an intention of Atlas Mara having to merge with Access Bank, which process we are still monitoring and obviously engaging other stakeholders like Bank of Zambia to make sure that the workers' rights are protected. We are on record and we want to condemn the barbarity and the uncoordinated manner in which the transaction that we could have already spoken about over the taking over or buying off of Kavmont Bank was handled. And we hope Atlas Mara going under Access Bank will be a case that will be handled properly and procedurally, professionally, in accordance to the dictate of the law of the land, in order to help our members make sound decision whether to continue or to be paid what they have worked for in their life of work at Atlas Mara. We hope and we believe that things this time are going to be handled properly, obviously for the benefit of the nation. Bank of China. With over 90% of members being promoted into fake management positions, there only remain 3 strong and committed unionized members in the bank. I wish Mr. President to take this opportunity to salute Comrade Simon Sakala for his leadership and vigilance to ensure that their rights are upheld and the spirit of unionism in the bank is kept afloat. During the period under review, there hadn't been any institution that has negotiated for a full collective agreement and concluded their negotiation for only 3 unionized members. I'm very happy to note that Bank of China is here as an equal affiliated institution with equally the same formidable presence as any other institution represented at this Quadrennial Conference. Bank of Zambia. During the period under review, the contracts for contractual members of staff were transferred to permanent and pensionable status. The situation at the institution has been relatively calm after the court case involving the awarding of the notch, which was in dispute, was resolved. The union therefore stood in solidarity and fought for the matter to its conclusion, and the court ruled in the favor of ZUFIAW. With the change in management, we hope to see a new and a more engaging and accommodating management, which shall be open and relevant to the cause of the union. Express Credit Bank. This is another new affiliate to the union under the period under review, which operates as a microfinance institution. The institution has a number of unresolved challenges, and the union has since taken management to court over the matter of separation package for members whose contracts of employment were terminated by management. There was a proposal by lawyers to settle the matter outside court, but management was unwilling to do so, and the parties are awaiting the court to determine the final verdict over the case. First Alliance Bank, FAB. The negotiations were concluded, and it is our hope that the salary scales currently in place in the institution can be improved upon and brought to the industrial average. This calls for serious engagement with management in our effort to realign the decent work country agenda. Going forward, Mr. President, we believe that the negotiations for conditions of service will be member-driven. First Capital Bank. There had been reported cases of intimidation in the institution whereby management does not apply the rules of give and take during the negotiation and always come up with a fixed position. Further, members are not free to voice out their concern for fear of being fired from employment. Ultimately, the members always get a raw deal from the negotiation. First National Bank. Management has been arbitrarily pushing a human capital manual on members and forcing them to sign the document which conflict with the collective agreement, which matter is not supported at all by the union. I wish to commend the chairperson and her team for standing firm and rejecting this imposition by management. However, the collective agreement was signed, and we hope that management will in future follow the labor laws and not bring imposition that cause anarchy and industrial disharmony within the institutions. Indo-Zambia Bank. This has been one of the most consistent banks in terms of negotiations and concluding of the negotiation without any dispute. During the period under review, we saw a change in leadership where the Lusaka branch chairperson was dismissed from the union. The bank generally remains solid and united in purpose despite a few challenges being faced. There are pending discussions to review the terminal benefit scheme to a contributory pension scheme. Negotiations for the new collective agreement are yet to be commenced, and generally management has been very supportive to the union and very cooperative in dealing with matters affecting the members. Investors. The bank is currently embroiled in a number of challenges. The bank recently attempted to transfer the union leadership into ceremonious managerial positions without their consent. The bank, in terms of productivity, has not been performing very well. We are hopeful that with the pending buying of shares by other entities shall greatly improve the position of the institution going forward. There is a restructuring process. We saw a number of our members' drivers being declared redundant, but we remain hopeful, Mr. President, that things in the institution shall improve and change for the better. LASIF. After the intentions to make amendment to the pension reforms where the scheme could not admit any new entrant into the scheme, the institution has been relying on old contributing members without new contributors to sustain the retiring members. This has really put a strain on the institution, leading to normally no deals during negotiations for our members. Despite these challenges, we commend the branch executive for remaining united and strong to the cause. NABSA. This is one of the biggest institutions in terms of numbers in ZUFIAW. The institution has had its own challenges where management portrays a cordial persona but is very much anti-union. This is one institution which supports equal pay for equal work by paying free riders whatever the union negotiates for. This has brought discontentment among the members, and the matter is currently sitting at the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, and we are hoping during the arbitration period we'll be able to tackle and to get support of the ministry or the government on this matter so that we don't negotiate for free riders. Not safe. With the change of leadership at both the Chief Executive Officer level and the Union Lusaka branch level, the institution has been relatively quiet, although some matters still remain unresolved, pending consultation between management and the union. We would like to commend the local union leadership for their continued consultations and willingness to be guided by Secretariat on any matter of interest and concern. PIA. The institution has seen a number of shake-ups due to changes in management, i.e. the passing on of the registrar and changes in other managerial positions. There haven't been consistent negotiation during the period under review, and the members are apprehensive over the non-adherence to the provision in the collective agreement. This is one institution where the reporting and effecting of the collective agreement is handled by two-line ministries, the Ministry of Labour and that of Finance. Prudential. The institution has been generally quiet in terms of dispute and industrial unrest, given that they have been resolving their matters in-house. There were redundancies in the form of restructuring of the institution, and a number of our members, especially drivers, were declared redundant. PSPF. There had been some changes at senior management level, and we are hopeful that this shall also bring about a change in the work culture and way of doing things. We saw management at one point reversing on a matter that had been agreed on at the bargaining unit table, which was very unconstitutional. The restructuring process in the union led to the closing of satellite branches and declarations of employees, which was a very unfortunate matter. Sanlam became affiliated during the period under review and had a recognition agreement in place. The institution has negotiated for 2 full collective agreements so far. There is need to continue with training for the executive members and the ranks and file members in the institution for them to fully appreciate the benefits of belonging to the union. Standard Chartered Bank. The bank employed a digital migration policy which was heavily reliant on technology, and this saw the institution reducing the countrywide number of branches and personnel. A number of our members were declared redundant in the process. The bank has reduced its staff complement by 2/3 of the workforce it had in 2018, most of whom were unionized members and non-management employees. UBA Bank. This is one of the newly affiliated institutions, and the negotiations were concluded and the collective agreement was signed and is currently in effect. Workers' Compensation Fund Control Board. The institution had a lot of challenges in terms of management and union relations. 2 years running, there hadn't been any notable increment which workers would be able to smile about. The workers have lost confidence in management, and the union has declared a dispute after protracted negotiation. where a 1.6% was offered as an increment by management. I repeat, a 1.6% was offered as an increment by management. This was far below the current inflation rate. An appeal has been made to the members to remain united as the matter is receiving serious attention with the engagement of the Labour Commissioner. Zanaco. Generally, there had been peace in the institution and mandate collection has been done, awaiting presentation of the same to management for the commencement of negotiations. However, there had been incidences where the local leadership could not coordinate the activities, which has since been resolved. We hope that such issues shall not reoccur in future, and we hope that our local leadership will be able to work in a more coordinated manner in order to speak one language for the betterment of the members in the institution. ZICAS. With changes in both management and the local union leadership, there had been a lot of maturity in handling union matters. Management is always in consultation with the union and is in the process of conducting an orientation program, where former union leaders have been engaged to provide training to the local leadership together with management. Management is on record to having awarded 10% across the board and negotiated salary increment. Zambia National Building Society, ZNBS. The institution has seen a shift in both operation and productivity levels. With the coming in of new managing director, confidence has been instilled back in the institution. We saw the collective agreement being concluded without a dispute. There had been several consultative meetings between management and the union, and the atmosphere in the institution has been generally sober. Negotiations were concluded, and we hope to see a lot of good things coming up under the institution. ZPPA. The institution experienced a number of changes starting from senior management to the local branch executive level. Most of the members from the branch executive were promoted into management, leaving a vacuum within the union ranks. Despite all this, the local leadership has proven to be strong and managed to handle the affairs of the institution very well. There is need to bring back those members in the middle management ranks to the union with their consent. We commend, however, the union for help being up to date with matters to do with the negotiation cycle. ZISC Life. This institution during the period under review had experienced an agreed wage freeze for the betterment of both the union and management. After restructuring and reorganization of the institution, we saw a change in management and the alignment of policies to install market confidence. However, the workers were compensated with a decent trade-off increment. ZISC GI. With the change of management, the institution has experienced a vacuum in terms of human resource practitioners. There had been a lot of mistrust and misinformation despite negotiations being concluded. There was a lot remaining to be done. A number of employees were promoted into middle management against their wishes. There is need to realign the grades and place people into proper grades. Meanwhile, there is also need for sensitization to allow the members to decide and do that which shall be beneficial to themselves and their careers.
Sports Festival. The ZUFIAW Sports Festival is an annual sporting event which brings together affiliated institutions to compete in various sporting disciplines for the championship honors for each particular year. During the period under review, the festival was only held in 2018 and 2019. However, after the advent of COVID-19, the festival was placed on hold for the year 2020 and again in 2021. The 2018 edition was held under the theme Promoting Growth in a Healthy, Modern and a Productive Workplace. In 2019, the event ran under the theme Health Through Sports for a Productive Workforce. ZUFIAW Housing Initiative. In order to ensure that members have access to housing security, the union negotiated and entered into MOUs with Diamond Equity, F&G Properties, and Panorama African Housing. The initial housing phase in Lusaka's Mungule area and 10 Miles area saw the union securing over 100 plots for members. Land is still available for members and house building facilities can be accessed after being negotiated for with African Panorama Group. Youth activities and representation at NEC. The union amended its constitution, which was adopted and ratified at the 2016 annual conference. In line with the ILO youth representation quota of 20% on decision-making boards, ZUFIAW ensured that the National Youth Committee had 2 seats in the National Executive Council, NEC. During the COVID-19 period, the committee continued with its training programs, where rank and file members as well as executive members were sent to the FES Youth Leadership Training blocks. The committee also conducted in-house virtual training for youth representatives from across the country. In the year 2019, the National Youth Committee exhibited at the National Youth Expo in Lusaka at the Government Complex under the umbrella of our international partner FES. The committee also made submission to Parliament on girl-child education and social cash transfer. During the period under review, the committee also took time to fulfill their corporate social responsibility by making donations of books, food items and cleaning material to the House of Happiness Orphanage in Lusaka's George Compound on National Youth Day in 2020. The National Committee also donated cleaning material, sanitizers, masks and other items to Mutendere Clinic Maternity Ward in Lusaka on National Youth Day in 2021. Women's activities. There has been a rise in the level of participation by women in union activities during the period under review. A number of our female colleagues have upgraded their education qualifications even to master's degree level, which is a commendable thing. We would like to urge each one of us to consider upgrading our qualifications so that we can continue to offer relevant checks and balances on both institutional and national matters. Employment Code number 19 of 2019. The union participated in the draft stage of the formulation of the Employment Code, and in 2019, the draft was assented into law. 6.6. Wider participation. As an institution representing a constituency in the financial sector, the union took keen interest in matters which would have immediate or long-term consequences on workers. The union participated in the Tripartite Consultative Labour Council on labour matters and other issues relating to national governance. The union also engaged government through the line ministries on matters which were of concern to our members. The union also made submissions before the Parliament Committee of Labour during the Bill 10 debate. Our particular interest was on pension reform, where government wanted to repeal Section 189 of the Republican Constitution, which allows an employee to remain on the company payroll until all their benefits are paid in full. The union has representation in the following boards: PIA, WorkCom, NAPSA, ZNBS, and ZISC Life. Through Federation of Free Trade Unions in Zambia, the union sits on WorkCom and NAPSA. International relations. ZUFIAW remains a fully paid up member in the Union Network International UNI, and it sits on the UNI Africa Finance Committee Board and SAT-UCC Executive Council representing the youth. The union also collaborates very well with ILO through the Center FFTUZ. Members of the Youth Committee represented the union in Germany at the invitation of our cooperating partners Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, FES, and at the 2019 UNI Africa Regional Conference in Cape Town, South Africa. The women have also been represented at various international platforms such as the Union Network International UNI Conference in South Africa and the United Kingdom by members of the National Women's Committee. The union was represented at both the 2018 and 2019 at the ILO General Conference in Geneva, Switzerland. In 2018, the delegation comprised of the union president and the general secretary. The 2019 conference delegation comprised of the general secretary and 3 members of the National Executive Committee. The general secretary also represented the union at the 2019 UNI Global Conference in Spain. We also stand in support of the 2019 ILO resolution to reject the recognition of gay rights across the globe. Zambia is a Christian nation and we must all stand united in upholding our Christian values and beliefs. The National Youth Chairperson, being an elected member of the Southern African Trade Union Council Coordinating Youth Committee, was also part of the SAT-UCC Observer Delegation during the 2018 general elections in Zimbabwe.
Going forward, ladies and gentlemen, Sir Winston Churchill once said that national and institutional governance should be responsive to both predictable and unpredictable changes in their environment and adapt accordingly in order to sustain their existence. The union should not be responsive to the changes brought about by technology and other changes that have arisen from COVID-19. Today, the labor movement finds itself in a digital age where technology and machinery are replacing labor in the workplaces. Indeed, there is need to reinvent ourselves as an institution and as individuals in order to ensure that we remain relevant in these dynamic times. This requires workers to upskill and reskill themselves in order to respond to the changes in the financial sector. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, the unfortunate aspect today is that most people getting into management in the recent past do not understand the role of trade union and the importance of fairness and equity in personnel management. The union needs to ensure that stakeholders and partners appreciate and respect the work of the labor movement in workplaces. We need to acknowledge as a labor movement that technology and digitalization are here to stay. What we need is to establish ways in which our members and the union at large are not disadvantaged in this process. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, issues such as social media are going to be a part of our communication strategies going forward. And we need to have engagement between management and the union on how to ensure that technology platform work to the benefit of both parties, that is the worker and the employer. This involves union involvement in strategic planning meeting, budget planning meeting, medium and long-term business strategy plan, institutional policies, recognition agreement and collective agreement need to take into consideration projected changes in the workplace, such as introduction of technological and mechanical changes which shall affect workers in the future. Meanwhile, each and every worker need to upskill and upgrade their academic qualifications, and this will help them to easily adapt in this dynamic working environment. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, sir, finally, as a labor movement, ZUFIAW shall continue. ZUFIAW shall continue to work with the government of the day while continuing to offer checks and balances on issues that affect workers in the country. We shall still continue to engage government to present the concerns we have and those we would have raised during the period under review and were not addressed by the previous regime. We still remain committed to the fight against free riders benefiting from what the union negotiates for. Institutions with multiple reporting lines need to have a specific ministry to report to in order to avoid the confusion which has been there in the past. Training for members has to resume as soon as the COVID-19 pandemic subsides. I would like, therefore, to sincerely thank my family